So as a new channel, I'm still trying to figure out what would be of interest to you guys. And the other day, I uploaded a video on life jacket checks. It seems you're not so interested in life jacket checks. The watch rate on that video, aye. So I racked my brain and I thought, I wonder what else they'd be interested in. And I thought, maybe propellers. Now, before you swipe away, just give us a second. I promise you, if you're at all interested in boats, there'll be a couple of points here where you'll be thinking, that's marginally interesting. So bear with me, just give us a few seconds and we'll see how we go. First thing, the propeller is measured primarily by two things, its diameter and its pitch. And the diameter is quite simply the outside diameter of the propeller. The pitch, on this case, on my training boat, it's a 19-inch pitch, which means that every time we get one full revolution of the propeller, it claws itself forward 19 inches in the water. So, the consequence of that are, if your engine is revving too high, your pitch is probably too small, and if it's revving too low, your pitch is probably too high. So a bit of playing around with the propeller will solve some of those issues. But there's some good guides online. If you're interested, I can chuck a few links in the comments with regards to interesting guides that will help you choose the right propeller for the boat. Anyway, moving on, something a bit more practical for you guys. The first thing to know is fishing line around propellers is really important, because what happens is it gets wound around in here and it goes inside to where the shaft is and it wraps around the shaft, and around the shaft there's a rubber seal that prevents the gearbox oil from coming out. And if you get fishing line in there, it wears away on that rubber seal and seawater goes into the gearbox, takes a big poo inside there, destroys your gearbox, and then what you end up doing is having to unbolt the gearbox, take it off and throw it in a skip and put a new gearbox on, 7-8 grand, whatever it's going to cost. So very important, if you ever get fishing line, it's a good daily check before you go boating. Check if there's any fishing line in there. If there is, spool it out, never cut it off. If you have to cut it off, the propeller needs to come off and have it taken away. Don't worry about doing it out on the water. Wait till you get back home before you start taking the propeller off. Top tip. I've dropped a few of the nuts before and that was a bit embarrassing. Okay, so the next thing we'll talk about is there's a bush inside a propeller, and you might want to know this as well, so stick around. A bush inside the propeller is like a rubber sleeve, and it's a sacrificial component. So that sleeve goes, attaches to the propeller, and the outside diameter of the rubber sleeve attaches to the propeller. So if you struck something with the propeller, rather than blowing the gearbox up through all that inertia, creating all that violent force in the gearbox, the rubber sleeve, the bush it's called, just slips and rips away, and therefore the shaft continues to spin but the propeller remains stationary. Now, I have had a couple of bushes go on me in the past, and a symptom of it, just so you're aware if it ever happens to you, is you go into gear and the friction of the bush inside there is enough to just get going, and the boat will gently trundle along up to about maybe 3 knots, and then as you start to accelerate, it starts to accelerate, but then and the engine revs up and the boat just comes to a stop as that bush slips. So that is one consequence of a bush failure in your propeller, and something to be aware of and be mindful of. Now on my boat, I'm going to talk about aluminium versus stainless steel propellers, and on my boat I use an aluminium propeller, and the reason for that is, as a teaching boat, it kind of has a hard paper round. I get a lot of the old, yep, pop it into forwards. No, that's reverse. Okay, pop it into reverse. No, that's forward. So it gets a bit of a workout. And being light and aluminium, it's a lot more forgiving on my gearbox. But the consequence of having an aluminium propeller are that it gets more flex and therefore more slip. Now, every propeller slips. Stainless steel propellers, the amount of slip, which means, as I said earlier on about that pitch, mine is a 19-inch pitch. If it slips, it won't actually travel forward the 19-inch. Every propeller slips. Really good stainless steel. Best you'd ever really expect under normal circumstances would be 10%, up to a crappy old aluminium, non-OEM, the original equipment manufacturer part, a cheapy one, probably slip up towards about 25%. The reason for that, primarily with the aluminium, is there's more flex in aluminium, and the cheaper aluminium propellers, they've actually got more silicon inside the aluminium, and therefore it flexes more. So look, that's a little basic. I don't want to go into too much more than that. That's pretty much all we really need to know as operators of propellers. I hope you found it of use. And as usual, please comment and help us grow, help Instagram recognize that we're good buggers really. And we'd love to have a few more people join the channel and spread the safety awareness and knowledge, and stay safe out there. Cheers, guys.